Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Deep Dive. So today, we're diving into the world of Piaget. You guys sent in, wow, a ton of material for this one. Articles, forum posts, even some of your own research notes, which is really cool. So get ready, because we are about to unearth all the fascinating little nuggets about Piaget. Whether you are, prepping for a big presentation or just totally geeking out on watches, get ready to see why Piaget is way more than just a fancy watch, okay?
It's really interesting what Piaget has done. They've blended this technical, mastery with artistic vision for over a century, which is crazy. It's a fascinating journey how they became a luxury powerhouse, and it all started in a place you might not expect.
Let's rewind the clock, shall we? Back to 1874 in a small Swiss village called La Côte-aux-Fées. We meet a young Georges-Édouard Piaget, and he's setting up shop. But here's the thing. He doesn't start by making watches. Instead, he focuses on making the movements, the tiny little engines that power a watch, for other brands. I mean, that's pretty surprising, isn't it?
It was a really smart move, honestly. So by perfecting those intricate mechanisms, the tiny gears and springs, Piaget built this reputation for precision that was legendary. They mastered the heart of the watch, really, before they ever even put their name on a dial.
So they were like the secret ingredient in some amazing watches for decades. But then everything changes. 1943, Piaget decides to step into the spotlight. They're going to start crafting watches under their own name. That had to be a big moment, right? Going from behind the scenes to center stage.
Huge moment. Imagine a composer suddenly deciding to conduct their own symphony. They had all this expertise, and now they could bring their own vision to life. And it wasn't long before they made a statement that would change watchmaking forever.
We're talking about ultra-thin watches, right? This is where Piaget really made their mark.
Yeah. 1957, they introduced the caliber 9P movement. Now get this, it was only 2 millimeters thick. Think about that, 2 millimeters. That's thinner than a stack of, 2 credit cards. And for Piaget, thinness was about elegance. It was about how the watch felt on your wrist. But the real genius is how they achieved that thinness without sacrificing accuracy.
Yeah, that level of engineering is mind-blowing, and they kept going. A few years later, they released the 12P, which at the time was the world's thinnest automatic movement.
These ultra-thin movements became the foundation for one of their most iconic collections, the Altiplano.
The Altiplano, the ultimate expression of Piaget's pursuit of thinness. Fast forward to 2018, and they unveil the Altiplano Ultimate concept. This watch, case included, is only 2 millimeters thick. It's insane.
It's like a watchmaking magic trick. This wasn't just about breaking records. It was about showing the world what's possible when you push the limits of craftsmanship.
But Piaget's artistry went beyond making things disappear. They also mastered the art of making watches you just couldn't ignore, and their journey takes another fascinating turn. In the mid-20th century, they started integrating high jewelry into their watch designs.
It was the 60s, a time of, bold experimentation,
Yeah.
Piaget took the precision of a Swiss watch and combined it with the artistry of a master jeweler. They started using gemstone dials, lapis lazuli, malachite, onyx. These watch faces became these tiny canvases.
It's like they were painting with precious stones. And you can see that same artistry in their modern collections, like the Limelight. These watches become these captivating pieces of jewelry.
And this dual focus on both technical watchmaking and high jewelry, it broadened their appeal. They were attracting those serious watch lovers, but also people who just appreciated beautiful, luxurious things.
So it's not just a watch, it's a statement piece. But all this artistry and craftsmanship, I mean, their watches must be pretty rare, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Piaget watches are produced in very limited quantities. It's not about mass production for them, it's about quality control. Every single watch is meticulously crafted, and that exclusivity is part of what makes the brand so special.
You're not going to see a Piaget on every wrist, that's for sure. There's a sense of discovery, something special about owning one. So we've seen how Piaget went from crafting these tiny movements to creating these incredibly thin watches, and then pushing the boundaries with these dazzling jewelry designs. But how does a brand with such a rich history stay relevant in a world that's constantly changing?
Well, they've embraced values like sustainability and ethical sourcing. They're focused on creating beautiful watches, but they're also thinking about the impact they have on the world.
And you can see that shift reflected in their marketing, too. They're appealing to a new generation of luxury consumers who want to know where things come from, what values a brand represents.
Exactly. They're not just talking to the hardcore watch enthusiasts anymore. They're talking to anyone who appreciates genuine craftsmanship, artistry, a brand that aligns with their values.
It's like they've perfected this balance of tradition and innovation. But there's one more pivotal moment we need to talk about. 1979, the launch of the Piaget Polo.
That was a game changer. Up to this point, Piaget was known for those elegant dress watches, the epitome of sophistication. But the Polo, this marked their entry into the world of sports watches.
So how did they make that leap? Did they just slap the Piaget name on a sporty watch and call it a day?
Not at all. They brought that same Piaget finesse, that attention to detail, to the sports watch world. The Polo was sporty, but with this undeniable elegance.
It's like they were saying, we can do sporty, but we're going to do it the Piaget way. Did this new direction change how people saw the brand?
It was a brilliant move. The Piaget Polo was an instant hit, and it opened them up to a whole new customer base without alienating their existing fans. It showed they were versatile.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. From their humble beginnings to those incredible ultra-thin watches, from gemstone dials to the sporty elegance of the Polo. It's amazing how Piaget has managed to blend tradition and innovation. Before we move on to the next chapter of their story, let me ask you this. Knowing their history, what do you think Piaget will do next? What's their next big move to push the limits of watchmaking?
That's a great question. It's hard to say for sure, but if we look at their past, I have a feeling whatever they do will be a stunning combination of artistry and technical brilliance.
I can't wait to see what they come up with. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a closer look at some of their most iconic creations. Coming up next, we're diving deep into the Altiplano collection. Stick around.
So welcome back to our Piaget deep dive. You know, we just explored their incredible journey from those humble beginnings as a movement maker to, well, a total luxury powerhouse. We talked about those ultra-thin watches they're famous for and those dazzling jewelry designs.
Yeah. And honestly, we've only just scratched the surface. There's still so much more to discover about this brand. I'm excited to keep going. What's next on our Piaget adventure?
Well, before we move on, there's one more thing I want to touch on from the last part. Remember how we talked about Piaget's commitment to, limited production? It's a big part of their brand, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's like they're saying, we'd rather make a few perfect watches than 1,000 so-so ones. That philosophy, it just seems to be baked into everything they do.
Exactly. And now I think it's time to talk about a pivotal year in Piaget's history, 1979, the year they launched the Piaget Polo.
Okay, things are about to get interesting. Because up to that point, Piaget was known for those ultra-thin dress watches, the epitome of elegance and refinement. So why would they suddenly decide to make a sports watch? Seems like a pretty big shift.
It was a bold move. You can just imagine the watch world's reaction when this brand, famous for delicate, elegant watches, suddenly releases a watch made for a more active lifestyle. Some people probably thought they were crazy.
Yeah, I bet there were some surprised faces out there.
Mm.
But they didn't just slap the Piaget name on any old sports watch, did they?
Nope, not at all. They brought that same Piaget DNA, that dedication to detail and artistry, and applied it to the world of sports watches. So the Polo, it was sporty, yeah, but it also had this undeniable elegance.
So we can do sporty, but we're going to do it the Piaget way. How did this new direction, how did this change people's perception of the brand?
It was a really smart move, strategically speaking. The Polo was a hit right out of the gate, and it brought them a whole new audience, maybe a younger, more active customer, but they didn't lose their existing fans either. It showed they were more than just one thing.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Piaget's history and their iconic collections, but how does a brand like Piaget, with all this tradition, how do they stay relevant in a world that's, constantly changing, especially in the luxury market, which is always evolving?
Well, one way they've done that is by embracing values like sustainability and ethical sourcing. Today's luxury consumers, they're a lot more discerning. They want to know that the brands they support align with their values.
Yeah, it's like choosing fair trade coffee or ethically sourced clothing. It's about making conscious choices. Sounds like Piaget's on the same page.
Exactly. They've been at the forefront of the luxury watch industry, adopting practices that are good for the planet and ensuring fair labor conditions throughout their supply chain. They understand that modern luxury is about more than just, a pretty face. It's about responsibility.
So they're weaving those values into everything they do. And I bet that resonates with, a younger generation of luxury consumers who are a lot more conscious of these things.
Totally. And their marketing reflects this too. They're not just showing off their watches anymore. They're telling stories about their craftsmanship, their heritage, their commitment to doing things the right way.
It's about inviting you behind the scenes, letting you see what the brand really stands for. Transparency.
Exactly. That transparency, it builds trust. And that's important for any brand, but especially a luxury brand. Now, don't get me wrong, Piaget is still all about those beautiful, ultra-thin watches and their incredible jewelry designs.
Of course. But they're not stuck in the past, right?
Right. They're always innovating, exploring new materials, experimenting with designs, always trying to push the boundaries of watchmaking a little bit further.
Like how they've been using high-tech materials like ceramic and titanium in some of their watches. It's like blending traditional craftsmanship with like cutting-edge technology.
It's really impressive. They've managed to be both timeless and modern, which is hard to pull off in a world that's always changing.
Yeah, it shows how adaptable they are. Now, I'm really excited to dive deeper into one of their most iconic collections, the Altiplano. It really showcases their mastery of ultra-thin watchmaking.
It's a collection that just embodies Piaget's pursuit of thinness. The watches in this collection are practically works of art.
I'm ready to explore that world of refined elegance. Let's talk Altiplano and see what makes these watches so special. All right, so we're back for the final part of our Piaget deep dive. We've really gone through their whole journey from these humble beginnings to becoming, well, luxury icons. And we've talked about how they blend this incredible technical skill with, this real artistic vision to create these amazing watches.
And now we're going to zero in on a collection that really showcases Piaget's mastery of ultra-thin watchmaking. I'm talking about the Altiplano, of course. This is like the pinnacle of their quest for thinness, these watches that are practically works of art meant to be worn and admired.
When I picture the Altiplano in my head, I think of like a whisper on your wrist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This subtle, elegant, sophisticated Satan piece. But under that minimalist design, there's some serious engineering at work, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Altiplano story, it goes all the way back to those groundbreaking movements we talked about earlier, the caliber 9P and the 12P. These incredibly thin calibers, they're what made it possible for Piaget to create these watches that were so unbelievably thin without, sacrificing precision or reliability. It's really a remarkable feat.
They defied gravity, right?
Yeah.
Through these watches that almost feel weightless. And the Altiplano collection has become this perfect showcase for Piaget's obsession with thinness. They've kept pushing the limits, setting records for the thinnest mechanical watches in the world.
They never settle, do they? Remember the Altiplano Ultimate concept we mentioned? That watch is only 2 millimeters thick, and that includes the case. It's insane.
I can't even wrap my head around how they designed and built something that thin. Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
It's more than just making a beautiful watch. It's like this pursuit of technical mastery,
Right.
On a whole other level.
Exactly. And that's what sets Piaget apart, I think. They don't just follow trends, they set them. They're always striving for this, unattainable level of excellence, experimenting with materials, refining their craft, and the Altiplano, it really embodies that spirit.
And you see that evolution within the Altiplano line itself, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You've got models with those classic minimalist designs that Piaget is known for, and then you have some with more contemporary elements. They have some models with skeletonized dials, for example, where you can actually see the watch's mechanism through the face. It's like peering into this miniature city of gears and springs.
It sounds incredible. And so even though, the defining feature of the Altiplano is this incredible thinness, there's still room for artistic expression and variety.
Absolutely. You can even find Altiplanos with, pops of color, these vibrant accents. It gives them a modern twist without losing that classic Altiplano elegance. It's a collection with something for everyone, but what unites them all is the shared DNA of, ultra-thin elegance and precision. It's a commitment to a very specific aesthetic.
That's amazing. Such a remarkable collection. And it speaks to Piaget's talent for balancing, heritage and innovation, creating these timeless pieces that still feel, totally relevant in today's world. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Piaget, it's just amazing to see how far they've come from that small Swiss village, crafting movements to becoming global icons of luxury. What do you think, what stands out to you as their most defining characteristic?
For me, it's got to be their dedication to craftsmanship. It's just in everything they do. They've taken watchmaking and turned it into an art form, taking these complex mechanisms and turning them into these objects of beauty and desire.
It's pretty inspiring, right? To see a brand with so much history still innovating and pushing forward. They show that true luxury is about more than just a fancy name. It's about a commitment to, quality, to innovation, to that passion for pushing the limits of what's possible.
They've definitely made their mark on the world of watches, that's for sure. So the next time you see a Piaget out in the wild, remember their story. Think about the years of dedication, all those hours of meticulous work, the passion that goes into creating each piece.
Yeah, it gives you a whole new appreciation for it. This has been an amazing journey. Thanks for diving deep with us into the world of Piaget. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
And hey, maybe one day you'll find yourself adding a Piaget to your own collection. A little piece of horological history to treasure.
That's a perfect way to end it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep an eye out for those beautiful Piaget creations.